With some persuasion, a lot of patience, there was just a chain slipping. I'm getting there. Some minute adjustments now. Bellows. Here's a topper. Somebody had glued the antlers in. I do not suggest that you glue the antlers in. If you ever sell it, the clock, or you want to transport it or store it, you need to be able to take the antlers out. Also, if they were to break and you want to replace it, now you're going to have to drill out the antlers in order to replace. So, somebody had glued the topper in the past. It's had a lot of damage to it, but it's back together. And I had to put a couple of screws in, and they're underneath the animals to hold the trim in place so you don't see them. But you could see a gap in between the base and the case, and that's because of the damage. Somebody tried to repair it before. They didn't do a very good job. I was wanting to see how this cuckoo here was mounted, and I found the exact clock on eBay for sale. And let me take you back up the top. Exact same topper, bird, rabbit, dancers, the whole bit. Made by the same company. Same music, I believe. Dr. Schwab. But this one's for sale for $175 plus $35 in shipping. West Germany. I'm trying to find the see if it gives me a good picture of the date code, but it doesn't. This one, however, it does have a newer music dancing platform in it. This is a plastic platform, and it's got some kind of chain guard on it. It's probably a plastic housing, but all this here is plastic, and you don't want it because of the plastic. You can buy a brand new platform, and they're all plastic anymore, for the most part. And the low note lip bellow, which is this bellow here, just like in this clock, the wire that goes from the lever to the bellow is behind the bellow on the inside, which is a pain in the butt to connect. I might put it here. But anyway, I got what I needed to see. One more quick video. You will see that this arm here is bent, and that's so the trip lever coming off the movement can hit it to get it all started. These are not typically bent. Typically, this arm is straight up here, and the because this is typically a top-mounted music box, and that way the arm coming off the movement has a wire that will pull this to get it all started. But they are using a top-mounted music box as a side-mounted music box, and so they bend this arm to activate it. So I went to Home Depot today to get parts for my water heater, and then I found this light. That way y'all could see more of me working on my clocks. 7500 illumination. It's adjustable. It's like $30. It was twice the illumination, 7,000 illumination. Twice the illumination is this light that I bought at Walmart here a while back for about the same price. And it's supposed to last 30 plus years. And if it lasts half that, I'll be happy. But I put these lights in my ceiling fans when I can, because they're bright compared to regular light bulbs. Energy efficient, over 800% brighter, 10 ultra bright light panels. And it's pretty cool looking, a little octopus thing. Reminds me of a spider or an octopus or something. Maybe a crab, the way it's adjustable. But as long as it doesn't interfere with my ceiling fan, I'll be happy. And it's brighter in here, so that's the most important part. That way hopefully y'all can see what I'm doing. So you ask, how do you put this tiny brass screw back into this case to attach to the music platform? Well, you grab you a screwdriver, you grab some Rodico, you put the Rodico on the tip of the screwdriver, you put the screw onto the tip of that screwdriver, you put the Rodico around the screw, and then now you should be able to put that screw where it belongs. You might not get it on the first try. It might take you a couple of tries. But once you got it started, you could take the Rodico off. And as you can see on camera, I put the screw in. Using Rodico. I love that stuff. Don't get in a hurry about putting the clock back together. I got the platform in, now I'm putting the music box in. Put it in, test it before you go on to your next step. That way you know it all works up until your next step. So you have this access panel here that you can use to help install the chain. And this is a good time if this gear is not matching up with that gear. This gear is attached to the music box. That gear is attached to the platform assembly. It's a good time using this access panel to adjust this gear to that gear if you need to do it. And I can see right now that, well, I had this lever bent too far. This lever here bent too far. It was catching. But now the music will stop because it's not catching. But I'm testing it with my fingers. Then afterwards, I'm going to put a chain and a weight on and test it. One step at a time. Hopefully you'll be able to see, but this thing is stopped in the exact same spot every time. And it had 275 gram weights on it. So I put a heavier weight on it. It calls for 320. And with the 320 weights on, it still stops in the exact same spot every time. I took a permanent marker and marked on the drum to see if it would stop or go on, but it stops in the exact same spot every time. So I have to, I'm going to have to investigate why it is doing that. Cuckoo clocks, they will make you cuckoo if there's issues. Be patient. I told you earlier, well, I said it in this video, it might have got cut short, but if this lever right here, this tab right here, if it's not stopping the band when the last music plays, you could take like an ink pen cartridge and cut it. You might have to ream it out and stick it on the end of it, just like you do with the side mounted newer music boxes. They come with a plastic cartridge. Well, I can't find an old ink pen, and I don't want to destroy a brand new pen. So I got these ear swabs. They're plastic, they're hollow, and they fit almost perfectly on that. So now I have to cut it off to where I want it to make sure the blade stops the music at the last note. If you can't get it to stop at the very last note, when it trips again, it has trouble coming out of the hole because there's a gap in this slot. And so it will continue to play until this lever is stuck in the very last part of the slot, and that lever could have a burr or be curved on the end, so it won't come out of that hole that well. So as you can see, I got this plastic ear piece on the end of that lever, and that way I don't have to bend that brass lever. It was working perfect until I turned on the video as normal. And now it's not stopping, so I have to push that plastic lever out some. Pens work better. This ear tab might be a little bit too big as far as the diameter of the hole, but I gotta continue playing with it. Before you put the movement back in the case, you need to do a punction test at least, and at least put the minute hand on. And even though you don't hook up the chains and weights, at least put the minute hand back on and put some power to the great wheel to see whether or not the minute hand is going to rotate or not. And I don't know if you could tell this or not, but the minute hand is rotating. I got power on the great wheel, and there's a put it back up on the 12 o'clock position, and I'm going to explain the reason why you want to do this. As you can see, I have power on the great wheel. Now I'm going to turn this around so you can see the minute hand rotating. I put it on the 12 o'clock position. Now it's already on the 3 minutes after, 4 minutes after, something like that. As you can see, it is rotating. On a Regula 25 and an 8-day movement, which is a 34 movement, there is this plastic wheel. On the 25, it goes directly from the great wheel on the time side to the minute hand center arbor center wheel. And I was telling you, if that plastic wheel is cracked or loose or whatever, your clock will sit there and tick all day long, but the hand will not rotate. And that's because of that plastic wheel. It also could be it might not have been you, and this is also a Regula 25, but as you can see in this case, the center wheel is also plastic, and that's that plastic wheel that is connected to the great wheel. Remember, I told you I do not take this apart. You can, and that's where I would use my side cutters, not to cut. I've got videos that show you by taking a pair of side cutters. If you had to, you could stick it underneath this thing and squeeze, and this wheel, this gear here that has the two shark bends on it. One of my subscribers calls it shark bends. It sounds good. But this piece right here is what trips the lift lock lever. One is longer than the other. This is the short one. It only raises the lift lock lever so far for the half hour. But on the hour, this raises the lift lock lever even further to trip the hour. And if your clock is not cuckooing on the hour or the half hour, I have a video that explains what to do. It could be this tab here is bent too far. It could be the distance between this lever and this lever is spread too far apart or not spread enough. Or there's also a tab right here on the lift lock lever that could be spread too much or not enough depending on the circumstances. But anyway, when they put, or you put all these parts back on, there has to be a certain amount of space between this and the plate. It's the same way with this wheel in between. There has to be a certain amount of space between that wheel and the plate. You have to have end shake like this. If you don't have end shake, this will never turn because it's not put together right. There's a spring that puts a certain amount of pressure on that wheel. If, in this case, if the plastic wheel was cracked on this minute wheel with center arbor, if it was cracked, then it's not going to allow the arbor to turn. So anyway, at least make sure that your minute hand is turning before you put the clock movement back into the case. It would suck that you did all this, you put everything back into the case, it's up and running, and your hand isn't turning because you didn't verify that. Now, on an antique movement that kind of has the count wheel, I'm not going to put all this together, but this shaft right here is the same thing. It has a compression 3-prong, typically a 3-prong, sometimes there are 4-prong compression washer that fits down on there. Let me get the part. Stand by. Here's that compression type washer. It goes down there. This is what trips the clock into motion on the hour or the half hour. This is the hour pipe, but this goes down first, then the hour pipe. And then there would be a tapered pin that fits in a hole on this shaft. What allows the hands to turn or not turn is the pressure from this compression washer. If your hands are not turning, or they're too hard to turn, you need to adjust the pressure on that compression washer. Now with the pin not in this shaft, see, I could turn this around and it doesn't affect the hands. That's because there's not enough pressure on this wheel to make it turn. When I put the washer and a wire tapered pin and turn the wheel, now it allows the hands to turn because it has the pressure required on it. And so on this type of clock, you'd want to turn the hand slightly to see if it's going to drop. And granted, this is not a perfectly squared hand, so you have to take that into consideration. The hole is not perfectly square, it's rounded out. And so, but if your hands are dropping as you rotate it, it's because there's not enough pressure on that compression washer. And I have a video specifically on count wheel type clocks. Now this is an AMS movement. AMS and bat off movements are basically, they do make a bat off movement that looks similar to this AMS movement. Most bat off movements got a letter B in them, but they do make a bat off movement that's similar to this one. But my point is, it still has a wheel on the great wheel and a wheel on the minute wheel center arbor that would rotate the hands. So you have to make sure that those wheels are not broken and that they're aligned together, they're not loose on the shaft, etc., etc. Same way with Herbert movements, they're all built the same way for the most part. And like I said, make sure that you at least do a function test prior to putting the movement back into the clock case. A function test means turning the hands and make sure that it cuckoos start with a number and work your way all the way back around to that number and count every time to make sure it all cuckoos on both the hour and the half hour the correct amount of times, that the bird wire comes out and that it goes back in when it's done that it's all working properly. That the 8-point star wheel, when it's done, that the tab on the 8-point star wheel is barely missing the hammer tab, and that way you know that the low note and the high note lever are going to occupy the same space on a regula movement. Bat off movements and AMS movements, it's differently. AMS movement that I was just showing you, hammer strikes first, then the high note lift lever, and then the low note lift lever. It's set up differently. The hammer is down here, then the high note, and then the low note is up here on top. But on a regula, it's plus on the AMS movement and the bat off movements that I was just showing you, the 8-point star wheel is in between the plates. But you just do a function test to make sure everything works prior to putting the movement back into the case. I put the movement back in. The minute arbor goes into the hole that you hang the clock on. This is after you got the chains wrapped around the wheels. And then you take a magnetic screwdriver or a magnet, you drop the chain down and put your magnetic screwdriver close to or inside the hole of the chain that you want to come out, and it's a lot easier than using a pair of tweezers. Of course, you can't do this with antique clocks where the chains were brass. They have to be metal chains. So I'm going to finish doing this. Working on the putting the bellows back on now. We got this wire here that will raise the bird's tail. As you can see, the wire just shoved in there, but it also rotates. So what you want is to put a staple in it also to prevent the wire from rotating. Now I just took a piece of wire and sharpened the ends of it. Well, bent it and sharpened the ends of it. And I'm going to use this piece of wire as my staple to hold that wire in place. It helps if you pre-puncture some holes first. And you could do that with whatever you want to pre-puncture the holes with. A small screwdriver works the best. That way you got a little grip on it. And you don't want to go too far with the pre-punctured holes because you have to get your wire to grip also. And now I just need to push that down. Now with the staple in, the wire doesn't move that much. It doesn't rotate around. So now I can put this in and then adjust this wire the way I want to lift up the bird's tail. Now I got the bellow in, and I'm doing a trial run. This is the low note bellow. This is the low note bellow lever that comes off the movement. This is the wire that attaches to the bellow top. As you can see, the bellow is all the way open, and it's not going to work because when you try to trip the cuckoo to play, the bellow is all the way open. So what you have to do, you have to hold the bellow lever where it comes out of the movement, and then with your fingers or a set of wire benders, bend the lever down so it's not opening the bellow as far. And so as you can see, it is playing it's not closing all the way because this is a new top, and it still has some of the memory in it. I could put more weight on it, but I think it'll work just fine. I'll trip it again so you can see it. There's a half hour. The hour. I'm going to try to bend it up just a little bit. Again, you have to hold the left section of this wire, and I should have a weight on it. The weight will make sure that the wire is in the resting position. Opening too far still. I bent it too much. Holding the left section with a pair of pliers, grabbing the right pair of wire benders, bending the right section down some. And in this case, I think the wire is grabbing a hold of the 8-point star wheel. I'll trip it again and see what's happening. Still, wire's bent. The bellow's opening too much. I need to bend it down some more. Remember I told you the 8-point star wheel has to be adjusted so the tab is barely coming off the hammer gong. I think in this case the 8-point star wheel moved on me. And I need to adjust it because it's got too big of a gap. Part of the time the low low note bellow, the low note lever is occupying the same space with the hammer, and that's not what you want. After some finesse, and I don't remember ever making one of these type of bellows that are in there sideways, but anyway, after some finesse, we have cuckoo. So it's on to adjusting the music box so it doesn't play music while it's cuckooing. As you can see here, I got it ticking away. As you can see, I have what I call the foot spread open a little bit. That way the pendulum leader wire can bounce back and forth off the foot. Now, if it was to stop, whatever side of the foot it stops on is the side that you want to bend the foot toward. For example, if the pendulum leader wire was to stop on the left of the foot, then you want to take your fingers and hold the top section of the crutch assembly with one finger and hold the foot with another finger, and then bending in the middle of the crutch assembly. You don't want to bend up here where it comes out of the movement, because it's soldered. The crutch assembly is soldered to the verge assembly, and if you bend it back and forth, it will break. When I first started repairing cuckoo clocks, that is what I used to do, and I broke several, and they're not very fun to repair. So again, you want to use one finger and hold the upper section of the crutch assembly, not the leader wire. The leader wire is what the pendulum hangs on, but the crutch assembly with one finger and another finger holding at the foot, and then bending in the middle of the crutch assembly to bend the crutch assembly to the left if it stopped on the left side of the, if the pendulum leader wire stopped on the left side of the foot, or bend it to the right if it stopped on the right side of the foot. I use two different hands. If I want to bend it to the left, I've got my pointer finger on the elbow that it comes out of the movement. I got my middle finger on the crutch on the foot, and then I'm using my thumb to bend in the middle. This is with my right hand, which will force the foot to go to the left. To make it go to the right, I'm going to use the same fingers, but with my left hand. Left finger, pointer finger goes at the top, the middle finger goes onto the foot, and then the thumb goes into the middle, which when I do this number, it automatically pushes the foot to the right. Now you only have to adjust them in minute increments. Now this is to get your clock settled in beat after you took it apart, messed around with it, and put it back together. Of course, it's level. If your clock works fine for first 2 or 3 months, month, week, 2 weeks, whatever, after you serviced it, and then all of a sudden it quits working, the first thing you need to do is, as you can see, I got the pendulum off the pendulum leader wire. The first thing you need to do is take the pendulum off the pendulum leader wire and tilt the clock to the left or to the right until you can stop the pendulum leader wire, and when you let go of it, it continues to tick. In this case, it is stopping on the right side of the foot, so it wasn't quite in beat, so I need to fix it. Here, after some minute adjustments, I can put my finger right there where the pendulum leader wire keeps hitting my finger and bounces off, and it continues to stay running. So if, more than likely, what I'm getting at, more than likely when you pull the chains to raise the weights, the clock tilted on you slightly. There was a guy in my group, brand new clock he got for Christmas, 8-day clock, ran great for the first month, then all of a sudden it quit running, and I told him exactly that. Take the pendulum off, tilt the clock until you can get the clock to the pendulum leader wire to bounce back and forth after you stop it with your fingers. And then once you can get it to tilt back and forth, you can put the pendulum on and the clock will stay running. I'm going to talk real fast about hanging your clocks on the wall. As you can see, I've got clocks every 6 inches. The studs in this wall are not 6 inches apart. They're probably, I don't remember. I put up this wall. This is a concrete based wall that I put 2x4s up so I could put my sheetrock up. But if you have an 8-day clock or a heavy clock, you want to put it in, you want to put the screw, and I use sheetrock screws, in a stud. Here's a heavy clock. Or if you have an antique clock, such as this, you want to put it in a stud. So here's one that's in a stud, here's one that's in a stud, that one's in a stud, that one's in a stud. And again, my 2x4s are not 16 inches on centers. I think they're 12 inches on centers. I went above and beyond. But where you don't have them in a stud, you see that plastic anchor? That's what these are for. It says it holds up to 65 pounds in half-inch drywall, and then the SPs hold up to 79 pounds in drywall. Different style. There's SPMs, and then there's SPs. I don't use the screws that it comes with. Again, I use sheetrock screws. They're simple to put on. You basically start one of those screws in a hole, and then take it out, take the screw out, and then you start the plastic anchor in a hole, and then you screw it all the way in, the plastic anchor, and then you put a screw in. They do a really good job. There are some that are cheaper made. These cost I think like 10, 12 bucks, maybe 15 bucks, I forget, at Menards. They have different styles. Over in England, most of the houses, well, all the houses that I lived in, they had concrete walls. You wouldn't find a stud, a 2x4. So you had to use concrete anchors. So don't be cheap in getting your anchors. You don't want one of these clocks falling off the wall and doing all kinds of damage. Again, it's my kitchen area. I do not have a stud in every one of those clocks. There's a few of those clocks that have plastic anchors. But if they're a heavy clock like this is a Fox and Grapes clock with a regular 701 movement in it. I've got a video on that thing. It's in a stud. I've got an 8-day cuckoo clock. It's in a stud. My my George Cool cuckoo quail clock. It's in a stud. My heaviest and most expensive clock is that Alexander Puig clock right there. This wall I put up, but on the other side of the sheetrock is wood. Here is a 4-inch or 3-inch or something like that screw that's in that wood. That particular clock has got wire cables that goes around that screw. How far do you let the screw stand out? Some people will say just a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. I say it depends on the clock itself. This is that same Alexander Puig clock. You see how thick the wood is? I'd have to get a micrometer or digital caliper and measure it, so stand by. That wood is almost 3/4 of an inch, almost 3/4 of an inch thick. So it depends on the clock. Most cuckoo clocks, vintage modern day cuckoo clocks, allowing your screw to stick out a 1/2 inch would work just fine, because the wood is not that thick. But on some clocks, you have to allow the screw to stick out further. This is a vintage cuckoo clock, 0.31 inches. So a little over 1/4 of an inch thick. So the George Cool clock, that wood is really thick. I had to allow the screw to stick out quite a ways. So you have to, it depends on your clock. And if the wood is thicker, you're going to want longer screws than your typical screw that you would put in, because a lot of people might use these screws right here, but it's not long enough. If you got that much sticking out to hang the clock on, you only have it in the wood itself. Once you go through the sheetrock, you're not even in the wood with this screw. So again, it depends on the clock, and I use sheetrock screws because I like the heads on the screws, and because I redid my house, I've got plenty of sheetrock screws left over. And this is that braided wire I was telling you, with that Alexander Flieg, my most expensive cuckoo clock, the heaviest cuckoo clock I have. That's how it's connected, is through this braided wire. I didn't put that on, somebody else did. It works great. Again, I hope y'all like this video set of me working on my daughter's friend's cuckoo clock. Like I said, it's not completely finished. There's some fine tweeting to do, but this video is an hour long, 55 minutes long, and I didn't want to make it any longer. 3-part videos are a lot to ask, or a lot to get people to watch. The people that want to learn from me, they're going to watch whether I put an hour-long video or a 2-hour-long video. And then there got people who complain because videos are too long. So you can't satisfy everybody. And so, but anyway, I showed you enough of this repair to help you out in fixing your clocks. Again, the side-mounted bellow is one that's giving me a little bit of trouble. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do, whether I want to take that bellow back all apart or put a new bellow in or what. But I'm looking at pictures of other clocks that have the side-mounted bellows where that straight wire comes through is what I'm trying to get a really good picture or a video of a clock that shows that side-mounted bellow, so I can see how it that wire goes through and how it functions. If you don't have the wire exactly correct, the bellow will not lift at all. And so you have to have it just right. And then the way the bellow is fit, they got the hole drilled into the side of the clock. If you don't have that bellow just right, it's not going to play, it's not going to make any noise, because it has to be just right in that hole to make the noise. And so if you got the bellow too far in, it's going to affect the music box chain. If you don't have it in far enough, then it affects it making noise. Just minute adjustments like that I have to figure out when I feel like it. Please leave me some comments, and may God bless each and every one of you.